Cool. All right, what you just saw me build there was a bit of scaffolding for some JavaScript tabs. If you've never built tabs before, they're the simplest things to do. It's actually one of the first things that I taught myself JavaScript with back when I started as a front-end developer. It's it's much easier now than it used to be. Back then, we mostly relied on things like jQuery and jQuery tabs and jQuery plugins to do all this stuff for us. But it's actually super simple, and you shouldn't be scared of doing it. Just jump right in and get some code going. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually style these guys out. So you'll notice that we have the bullet points and everything from the unordered list and the list item. So we're going to go ahead and remove that by using a list style none. Also, the padding and margin is not necessary right now, so we're going to remove that. I should probably learn how to code. There we go. So now that it's gone and we have a nice clean slate, we can go ahead and style our LIs. I'm going to use one of these guys and give it a class of isActive, and this is what we're going to use for our show and hide class. So this is the second one, right? Yeah. Okay, so we can do isActive. There we go. Okay, so now that we have our li, we can go ahead and style our anchor, and then we can put a spot in for our active class. So let me go ahead and make this bigger. Boom, boom, boom. All right. So in order to add padding to these guys, we have to change the display type. So I'm going to go ahead into an inline block, and that way we can do a padding of, I don't know, let's do 0.875 rem and 2 rem on the side. So this is top and bottom, left and right. So we have that going now. Another thing we're going to do is remove that blue. So let's do color 333, and we are also going to remove the text decoration. Set that to none. And they're not really tabs if they're vertical. So on the back over here on menu tabs, we can do a display of flex direction, although not necessary, of row, but it's nice to have just so that we know what's going on. And another thing I'm going to do is separate the tabs from the content. So I'm going to do that by doing a border bottom 2 pixels solid, and I'm going to use a light gray as the color. It's still visible, but there we go. So another thing I want to do is the padding on the sides here is not very good. So what I'm going to do is actually do it to tabs content. So let's do that. So tabs content, let's do a padding of 2 rem. There we go. So now it lines up with this tab 1, but I still don't like it being on the sides. I think, yep, I added a class of section. So let's just do a section padding 2 rem all around, just, you know, to make it easy. There we go. Now it's a little bit easier to see, and we can make more room for ourselves. Well, not too much. There we go. Okay. So another thing I want to do is I want to add, since we have an active class that we're going to be using, I want to add some styling to depict that we're actually, that we've clicked on it and it's active, and it's the current one that we're looking right now. It's a bit of chaos. Everything is kind of hidden. I'm sorry, not hidden. Everything's kind of visible, and we're going to use a class to hide it. So tab content is the class we ended up writing. So we're going to do a display none on that. And then because we do have an active class, see, they're all gone now. We do have an active class. We can actually target isActive with a display block. There we go. So now tab 2 is the only content that should be displayed, and we got to make sure that we let our user know that we're on this tab here. So to do that, we go back over here to isActive, and under the anchor tag, I think the easiest way to do it is border bottom 2 pixels solid. Let's do red for now so we can see it, and then when it's active, we're going to change the color. Border bottom color. I have a color that I usually use, 00, I don't know, 738E. There we go. Yeah, that's a nice little blue. Okay, so now you can see that the colors, the blue color is the one that's active. These guys, the red ones, are the ones that are inactive. And I made it red for a specific reason, and that's because I want to point out that we did add a border bottom to our anchor tags, but we also added it to our UL, and that's so that it goes all the way across, right? The problem with that is obviously that they're on top of each other. So to fix that, it's super simple, just because they are both 2 pixels in height here and here. We can just use a margin bottom, a negative margin trick, margin bottom to negative 2 pixels, and it'll now be nice and on top of each other, and it'll actually, there you go. And if we change this over to transparent, now we have the desired effect. They're all the same color though, so let's change that. I can probably go for a simple black. And I don't know, maybe font weight 600 bold. Yeah, there you go. So now we have an active state, and we can get to coding the JavaScript. So the idea of this is that when we click this guy, what's going to end up happening is refresh, please. I'll refresh in a minute. What's going to end up happening is when we click it, we're going to change the active class of the LI, and the class of the tab content here is active for the one that we clicked. It's that simple. I'm going to go ahead and save this so it doesn't yell at me. Okay. And we're back. Okay, cool. So the code's still there. Everything is still there. So we're just going to write up the JavaScript. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a const init, and it's going to just be an arrow function. We're just going to use it to initialize all of our code. Cool. And then the second thing I want to do is actually pull the LI, actually the anchor tags. I want to pull the anchor tags from menu tabs and loop over them. So I'm going to do a const triggers equals document.query selector all. And I can just use a, but if we have anchors inside of the content here, we're going to query those two and get those because we're just querying on the document. So what I'm actually going to do is do menu tabs anchor, right? You could get a little more creative and do a li anchor, something like that. But that will be sufficient. Let's console it out and see what we get. So yeah, so we got a node list of 5 here. Let me go ahead and do a bit of a, oh, I screwed up. I'm sure you noticed that. Oh, and excuse my phone. So yeah, so now we have a node list of 5 anchors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? This is cool. The only problem is that it's a node list, and unless I do a for loop, I can't really use the cool array feature. So I'm going to use an array from to create an array out of this node list, and now we have an actual array that we can loop through. Cool. So we can go triggers dot for each, and then accept in the trigger in this arrow function. So the class that we're actually using, I can do const active class. You can store it if you want. Is active. This is just in case it changes. That's why I'm storing it. Okay, so now that we have the trigger, we want to add. I think we've said that the is active is on the li. Yeah. So when we click it, the first thing we want to do is say trigger.add event listener on click. Okay. And we're going to accept an event in here. Okay, and we're going to say e.prevent default. And the reason we're doing that is so that when we click it, it doesn't give us that bad request, because it's going to try to go to that link. Now that we click it, nothing happens. See, no errors, no anything. We're preventing its default functionality. So now that we have that, we can actually go on with the rest of our logic. So the first thing we want to do is get the li and give it an active class. So we do that by saying trigger.closest li, right? We can console.log that out so you can see it. I mean, I already know it's going to happen, but boom, we have the li. Okay, so now that we have the li, affect its classes, right? So class list, and then add, and then we can do active class. So now if we click it, we should get an active class, right? And the next step is to get the active class from here and add it to the corresponding content. So to do that, we have the trigger, which is again the anchor. The anchor itself has the href stored in it as tab 1. It actually should be a pound. That's why it was a bad request earlier. Should be a pound, and I know I forgot one, because we're going to use this as a selector to actually pull in the content. So to do that, we're going to do document.query selector, and we're only going to use query selector, not query selector all, because we know there's only one. And if there isn't only one, we're only going to get the first one that appears when the DOM goes from top to bottom. So we're going to say query selector, and we have the href again stored. We have the selector stored in the href. So we can say trigger dot get attribute, and it's href, and it has the pound sign in it already. So we'll be able to grab it. Now that query selector will return the one node, so we can do the same thing that we've done for our closest li, and just say class list dot add active class. Right. So now that we're refreshed here, I'm gonna hit tab 3. Tab 2 is still gonna be there, but once I hit tab 3, we should have gotten an active class there, and we should have gotten the content, but we didn't. Instead, we got an error, and we got an error. Why? Can I read properly? Class list of null, because query selector did not work. Let's try this out. So let's console log this. Okay. Clear this out. Do clickety click. We get a null. Why we get a null? Trigger is our anchor. Get attribute href. Okay, let's console log the href. What did I screw up? Maybe you see it and I don't. Boom. Nope. Tab -1. Oh, is our name wrong? We didn't give it an ID. Got it. Tab -1. I'm sure you saw that from the beginning. So let's do tab 1, tab 2, tab 3, and so on. Okay. So now, if I do this, I should get it right. Tab 3, cool. Now let's keep it document.query selector. Let's try that again. Clear it out. Oh god. All right. 3. Boom. Tab 3 works. Perfect. So now we can do the class list thing. Class list add. All right. Now I know this looks ugly, and we can probably store them in constants and so on. But there we go. We should get tab 3. Yeah. All right. Like I said, it's ugly. I get it. We can probably make this a little bit better, and we can if you would like. So let's do const li equals this. I mean, it's not necessary. It doesn't really matter. It works, but sometimes we want to be clean. So for this one, we can do panel, and then do const panel equals. There we go. It's a little easier to read now. So the li and the panel both get the active class. Now the thing that we want to do is reset this entire thing. So it's super simple because we have the same active class. So what we can do is I don't know, go back up to the li. Yeah, do the I think. Hold on. Yeah, so we can do the li closest ul, and then we can do query selector all, right? Or actually just query selector and do since there's no period on there, we're gonna have to do dot. Actually, we can do this. Nope, that's not how you do it. That's how you do it. We can add a period and say active class, right? So if we get to the closest URL and query the active class, and we can remove active class. So let's try that first. So Click. Yep. Boop, boop. Perfect. We can do the same thing for the panel. Oh, it's a good thing we started the panel in the thing in the li. Panel.closest tabs content. And then we do this. Same thing. Cool. See if it works. Yep. There you go. Cool. So you could probably make this a little bit better. I mean, a little cleaner code, I'm sure. But this is the fastest way, the fastest and easiest way to get a tabs component going. You can obviously use this with other things that'll slot right into any Vue project, any React project. They all use the same thing. They're all just elements, right, that we remove and add classes to each other. This is essentially the main logic of it. The only other thing that we're doing is adding event listeners to the whole thing and then initializing it. But yeah, this is how simple it is to get tabs going. I think the hardest thing for me when I was starting out actually was the styling of it. Now it's a lot easier with, you know, SCSS as well as simpler styling with the whole idea of material design and so on. But yeah, that's how you do that's how you do tabs and tabs component with Vanilla.js.